whilst we do have that private BRSCC battle going on further down the order, at the front it's Adam Sparrow hoping to double up on race victories after beating Paul Simard to the win yesterday. Neil Chisnell and Michael Taylor share row 2 ahead of Adam Craig and Steve Foden, with Steve Bartlett and Paul Bateman together on row 4. Row 5, Jason Greatrex and Dev Singhal, with Harry Storer and Bo Parry completing the top dozen. Then it's Dennis Pillamonkin ahead of Chris Wright, Daniel Lengel and Matthew McCluckie on row 8 together. Row 9, Bradley McLagan and Chris Thelwell. Then it's Peter Williams and Luke Souch in 20th position ahead of Simon Privet and Tim Storer. Charlie Snell starts 3 positions behind Luke Souch, but those two have been very evenly matched on pace, to be fair, this weekend. Joshua Pato is next. Then it's Andrew Gilligan and Ollie Walden, with David Scowler and Richard Bartlett at the back of the grid. So 28 cars set to take the start, Scott, and an exciting race in prospect, I think. Yesterday's race won by Sparrow by a fairly narrow margin, it must be said. Paul Simard and Neil Chisnell both hunting him down to the checkered flag, and both gunning for a race win this time around.
Potentially. I mean, they put on enough of a show yesterday in their first race. Of course, the fact we've got 2 to go should be rather fascinating as we get ourselves ready to go on that sense. I imagine that it's going to be quite a frantic battle, as it was all the way through from start to finish. So we will wait and see how this one plays out as we look for this field to make its way around onto the grid for our second of 3 races. Adam Sparrow, who I remember Rob was saying he was tipping him to be on the podium, so I'm expecting to be on the podium to have a chat with him. And he was feeling a bit nervous, which I was a bit surprised about Sparrow, because he's one of a handful of cars which Brian Chandler does run, and Adam, of course, is, I guess, in terms of pace, the leading car in that field, and he'll be looking to try and extend his championship lead further if he can. I was impressed yesterday by particularly Paul Simard. He was having quite a fun run all the way through, but I think one driver who was maybe a bit lower than he really would have wanted to have been was definitely Steve Foden. Of course, at one point he was 10th or 11th and fell backwards because he fell out of that momentum all the way through the first few laps, and she got shuffled back to as far as 11th, but then managed to pick his way back up to P6. So he'll be looking to try and fix that as quick as he can. And then as we then move forwards into the next race, it'll be quite interesting to see how this drag race between Adam Sparrow and Paul Simard runs. And I'll also be watching out to see how Steve Foden makes progress from P6. If he's got himself more figured out and he can keep in this situation, it should be quite fascinating to see how he can put himself in the better mix. I'll also keep an eye on the likes of Adam Craig and also Mike Taylor, who at one point was in contention really for the win, the ex-Ginetta GT Academy racer and champion, if you remember correctly, did that though. We worked that out yesterday looking back at the stream for Stetton, looking at the screenshot. Big giveaway, he was wearing Ginetta overalls. So the fact he stepped to MX-5 showing he's got the quality, and definitely the Ginetta title certainly wasn't a fluke. But 28 Mazda MX-5s are ready to go, and let's see if they can put on just as good a show as they did yesterday. I'm sure they will.
I'm sure they will. 20 minutes of racing then. The AD Modular Mazda MX-5 Championship, second race of the weekend. And it's Adam Sparrow and Paul Simard battling from the front row. They launch off the line as the red lights go out. And it's a good start by Sparrow by the looks of it. Noses ahead on the preferred inside line. All 2 cars off further back though, headed for the barriers. Didn't quite spot who they were. But hopefully they didn't make too significant contact with the concrete wall. We've had that already earlier on today in one of the other races. The rest of the pack though head out of Redgate. Both cars continue. That's good news. So no need for safety car interruption. Oh my word. Car over though, exiting Redgate. There are 3 or 4 cars off, I think, at the top of the hill, and that is going to require a safety car almost certainly. It was not no, in fact, red flag is out. Race being stopped immediately. Not sure who they were either. It was somewhere towards the top 10, I think, though, that one was triggered, and that is a sizable incident.
I think one that was going over, I think from what I saw, it was a light blue car, and I think I saw number 2, so it might well be, not yet confirmed until we see anything. It looked like Matthew McCluckie to me, I think, possibly. I think the 14 was involved, which was Bo Parry. He was starting back in 12th somewhere, and there was a third car involved, and it was, I could tell it was orange with some black striping on it, but again, not exactly sure who that might have been. Obviously in that scenario, no one ever wants to see that, so the first concern obviously is that all drivers involved are okay, particularly the car that went over. You never want to see that, as much as people, well, I was about to say some people find crash entertaining, but at that point, obviously there's no entertainment in that until we figure out who the, well, at all, we need to figure out if the driver's okay. But red flag and race has been stopped, so that will mean they'll go back to original grid positions, and of course we now make sure that the marshals and recovery teams make their way over to ensure that all drivers involved are on the surface at least okay, and of course all will go to the medical centre to be checked over by the chief medical officer to ensure that as far as they can see, all is well. So all we can do is sit tight and everyone let them do what they need to do. But that's a site where you never want to see that. Of course, it's quite extraordinary when it does happen. And fingers crossed, all drivers are indeed, on the surface is what we can see, okay from that and can walk away from it.
Indeed so. I think the start line collision, Tim Storer was one of the drivers involved, wasn't it? I didn't see who the other one was.
I think it might have been, it was like a maroon colour car. I think that's 666 Simon Privet.
Which would make sense. They shared the 11th row, so
yeah.
that would make sense as to what happened there. But then, yes, a much more significant incident coming out of Redgate Corner leads to a red flag. So the cars that got around that first lap will make their way momentarily back to original grid order in anticipation of a restart. Adam Sparrow and Paul Simard are there, and interestingly, Steve Foden got into third place as well. So there we see Bo Parry, definitely one of those involved.
21, and that's Bradley McLagan.
Bradley McLagan, yes. Is it 20? Yes, it is 21, isn't it? Yes. And then the other car, we think might have been Matthew McCluskey. There is a blue car that was the one that went over, wasn't there? So 3 cars involved, but all drivers appear to be out, which is good news. And as you said, they will be checked over in the med centre, I'm sure, but doesn't look, in the grand scheme of things, as if we came out of that too badly.
Yeah, I think it looks like all 3 drivers are out, which is the best thing to see, at least initially. So thank goodness they are, or at least up and walking, able to walk of their own accord. As I say, in any incident, whether it's big or small, they all mandatorily have to go to the medical centre to be checked over to ensure that it's nothing underneath that you can't spot immediately from the surface has gone on at all, to make sure they are okay. Unfortunately, it means it's unless, well, the 2 cars in the gravel, I think we might well see them out for race 3 if they're okay. If it's Matthew McCluskey's car, if I'm sure I think it was, which suggests that even though he started in, well, he was around that sort of area of those cars there, with the car that dropped back, I was saying, he was out of position, was Bo Parry. He was started 12th in the 6th row of the grid, but he dropped backwards, and so Matthew McCluskey and Bradley McLagan were in the same area of the grid, where Matthew started 16th, Bradley McLagan 17th. So looks like it was possibly, I saw that Bo was on the outside of Redgate, so whether he was in a flush of what was going on the outside line and losing a couple of places, and as a result of that separate battle came together. Obviously, without any other camera angles, it's all speculation, but in terms of trying to piece that together in my mind, looks like how those 3 came together, and it was Bo not getting the start he wanted, and being maybe hung out to dry on the outside.
Yeah, that's so often the case, isn't it? It snowballs. You we'll have one bit of bad luck, and then it can so easily develop into an even worse bit of bad luck, and you just end up in the wrong place at the wrong time. But it's a shame for Bo, who has been around the MX-5 paddock for a number of years now, racing in this and at times in the Clubman Championship. But yeah, it's not the start to his day that he was hoping for. Hopefully, that car will be back out for race 3 a little bit later on. So cars regridding, and Adam Sparrow has to do this all over again now, get the restart right from pole position. Got a decent start the first time around though, has to be said. Paul Simard wasn't really able to challenge him, but Steve Foden, as I said, came from 6th to 3rd on that, half a lap or so of racing that we had. So Foden was on his toes. Really got roughed up yesterday, did Steve Foden. It seemed that every time we saw him, he was heading off the track rather than round it, and not usually through his own fault. There were a couple of little moments here and there, but yeah, he tangled with a couple of other drivers during the course of that first race, so he really needs to try and bounce back from a championship perspective. Steve Foden came in 2nd in the championship with only 1 win from the first 5 races. The other 4 had all been won by Adam Sparrow. So Adam Sparrow, who came agonisingly close to the championship a few years ago, I seem to recall, at Brands Hatch, has become a regular front runner in the MX-5 Championship. Really seems this year is, he hopes, his year, and he started off in brilliant fashion with, well, actually 5 wins now, of course, from 6 races, with Foden the only other winner, that coming in the 3rd race at Snetterton, or Snetterun, as it's called on the points table on the BRSCC's website, which might need to be amended before the next round. The next round will be at Croft, then they head to Cadwell Park, Anglesey, and it all finishes at Silverstone on, I think, the international circuit at the end of the season. So we are approaching sort of a 1/3 of the way through the championship campaign. Adam Sparrow and Steve Foden will both anticipate that they will be championship contenders come the end of the season. Of course, that championship lead would have gone out in the favour of Adam Sparrow after yesterday's result. Matthew McCluckey, who we believe to have been involved in this incident at Redgate Corner, he was third in the points coming into this weekend, despite the fact that, if I'm reading this right, he hadn't actually had a podium finish yet, but he'd just been really consistent, top five or six finishes in every race so far, and he was third in the championship, albeit some way back from the top two. So Sparrow and Foden, that does seem to be the championship battle at this stage. Those two already sort of distancing themselves from the rest of the pack.
So field is now lined back up once again as they now start to load up Bo Parry's car onto the trailer. Again, shout out to all the marshals and the recovery teams, of course, have been performing live snatch over the course of the weekend and being able to pull cars out of the gravel pretty quickly. Indeed, the marshals, even mid-race, we had that clear that was off in the DDMC race earlier on, race 1, where it was facing the wrong way at the chicane, and they were able to push that away pretty quickly under double wave yellows. And even you, Brave, you said that you wouldn't catch yourself in that situation. But for those who do choose to do so, again, massive thank you, because as we know, it's something which is something brave that those can do as a marshal. And again, I've always maintained that marshals are pretty much the best, I think, best trained in the world. There's some that can be equally as trained, like American marshals are pretty good and others, but I think British marshals do get excellent training all the way through from start to finish, and they get refresher training every year. There's always encouragement to bring new marshals in. It's a great way to be part of the sport and to get an entry. I can't make exact specifics, but there are some people who've gone up into quite high ranks, even drivers in the sport, who've started as a marshal just to be involved in the sport, and it's a great, essentially, most to your own expense, but free way to kind of get involved into an event. And it's something that we say quite often, but it's absolutely 100% true every single time, is that without marshals and the people who volunteer at these events, like our officials, like our kind of people at scrutineers and everybody else, particularly marshals in that sense, if we have no marshals, that's it. A race event can't happen full stop. And that's full stop across motorsport, whether it's from club events like this or even over in Monaco for the Grand Prix or Le Mans or anything else. If there's no marshals or volunteers to actually make the most important parts of this event happen, it can't run full stop. So we have to be very thankful for them and all the effort they put in. So if you are a marshal watching, if you're watching this back, again, thank you for the work that you put in to make these available, events happen. And I've always maintained marshals are the best in the world, and I think they always will be because of how well they're trained. Even so that marshals who start doing club events here, they get to be such a high standard that they get to do. There's a good selection of them that apply to be at the British Grand Prix every single year, and that's almost like a bit of a reward for them to do it. Some go as far as Le Mans, some go as far as Asia or Australia or the Middle East, a place like Abu Dhabi for the Grand Prix, and other places around the world, because they are such a high standard, they're so well respected, and they do such an amazing job to such a high standard.
Yeah, no, they definitely do. They are the best in the business, as we say, and thank them all for their service. They've had a fair bit to do today. Yesterday, this is what always happens. Yesterday evening, there were a few conversations among the organising team here at the BRSCC about how reasonably tame yesterday was, really. It was pretty uneventful, no major scares. We had a Citroen that fell over down at the old hairpin, but even that was a fairly minor roll. Always the way, isn't it? You have one calm day, and then the next day, all hell breaks loose, and we've had a little bit of that already today. A delay this morning, now a further delay to kick off the afternoon. Hopefully that's it, us done with red flags. It's our second of the day, this, and we don't want that trend to continue because we've got a lot to get through, 10 races to get through this afternoon. And almost every championship that's here today back out again at some point later on. I think the only exception really is the Fiesta ST150s, so a lot to get through, and we don't need too many of these red flag delays.
Also CNC Heads, who wrapped up their weekend early as well. They were the first race of the day, so that side of things. Just see I'm going to get in there right. If I get in there wrong, I'm going to be shot. Nina Fountain down there, who's one of the kind of leading marshals down there, just having a chat with one of our other marshals on the grid, and see she's still working hard as the car's now gridded out. Now, of course, for those who need the info, because there might be somebody watching for the first time, not for those who are the NMAX thinking, oh, I know this already, but some might be watching for the first time, just for their benefit, just for the grid restarts, because the race ended on the first, was red flagged on the first lap, and they hadn't completed at least 2 laps. The grid order is literally exactly the same as it was based on it was going to be from the results of race 1. So there's no changes to the grid. Doesn't matter who passed who on that opening few corners before the red flag. They all go back to their original grid spots, which means that Adam Sparrow will go back to pole position, Paul Simard's back into the front row of the grid from Neil Chisnell, Michael Taylor, Adam Craig, Steve Foden, Steve Bartlett, Paul Bateman, Jason Greatrex and Dev Singal. That's the top 10 as it was. You can see the weather conditions on the right hand side. It's kept a relatively comfortable 16 degrees or so. It might creep up a little bit. Well, that's the old weather. It's now got up to about 17 degrees or so, because we're now at we need 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So our weather graphic needs to be brought up to date in terms of where we are. But the temperature's been steady at about 16, 17 degrees. My weather app tells me we're at about 18 now. And in terms of a high, where are we going to be in terms of high for temperatures? It tells me somewhere around about maybe 19 degrees expected to be as high. It'll feel like 18, according to whatever that means. Nice because it feels like 18. I've never got that before, how that happens, but how that works. But they give an actual number, and then they give like a feels like number, and it's like the difference. So this is what it actually is. This is what you'll think it'll be. Apparently it's windy as well, according to Rob, who's observing from the back of our commentary box position on that side. So
thank goodness you came, Rob. We would have never have had any idea, would we? If only there was a big BRSCC flag blowing in the wind right outside our commentary box. I did wonder why you were taking refuge in the commentary box a bit more today. It's a bit blustery out there, and doing a number on your hair, I suspect. Anyway, before Rob kicks me, let's get this race restarted, shall we?
Well, I don't know why kicking you. You're feeding his ego. He's not disagreeing.
Not sure that was the intention, Scott. Anyway, cars will very shortly be released onto another green flag lap, as Scott was quite rightly saying, and hopefully we'll get the full 20-minute restart as the time. No, 15 minutes. 15 minutes reset. Thank you, Barry. Everyone's giving us information, just that 30 seconds later than we needed it today. 15-minute restart here at Donington Park, and the AD Modular Mazda MX-5 Championship will, with a slightly depleted grid, get going again. One thing I want to get at the bottom of is whether Tim Storer and Simon Privet sustained any real damage in their little tangle. They both carried on, but hopefully they'll be able to take the restart. That car's definitely not in showroom condition anymore. It is. We can now confirm the number 2 of Matthew McCluckey, and that's the car that went over at least once at Redgate Corner. You don't think the cars are going all that quickly exiting Redgate Corner, but that demonstrates they are moving at a fair lick there, aren't they?
One thing to point out as well, of course, these are open-top cars, of course, and of course they all have a rollover protection system, or more simpler term, a roll cage. Of course, every single roll cage that runs in a race car obviously has to be, regardless of which race car it is, it has to be FIA homologated, so it works, because that's obviously not just MS UK standard, but it's FIA World Motorsport standards. Thankfully, every single roll cage is, and of course as well, I mean, in terms of driver protection with these cars, unless you have to kind of have some kind of a roll cage extender, which or higher, slightly add-on on top of it, which I've seen before in Caterham specifically, when you have a slightly taller roll cage for taller drivers. Obviously, every single driver has to be fitting within the confines of the top of the roll cage, so the head's not poking out the top, because in a situation like that, well, it doesn't bear thinking about. So thankfully the roll cage, in its sense, did its job. So even if the car, unfortunately, you never want to see a car go over, but when it does, you have to use that roll cage and rollover protection system. But at the very least, it's a comfort to know that it's there and it's strong enough and FIA homologated, so that if it should happen, goodness forbid, then the driver is safe enough to at least walk away, barring anything else that can happen on that sense, and they are as protected as they can be. I think they also do run, if I'm right in these cars, remember before, for anything on the side impact, they run NASCAR-style door bars behind the doors as well, also too. So even though these are cars built from as far back as 1989, they're all still made as safe as possible, using the mandated MSUK and FIA homologation standards in terms of what these cars require to go racing in any capacity.
Remarkable, isn't it? Yeah, you forget how old these cars are. They are classics, aren't they, really? The Mark 1 Mazda MX-5, and yet still a huge amount of them that race across the United Kingdom, and they race them hard. They don't race them like classics, but still able to get parts that can be used as spares on the car, still able to get a donor car. Actually, they made lots of them. It was a very popular car, so plenty of them out there on wherever you buy your second-hand cars from, and it's keeps feeding this hugely popular motor racing scene in the UK for Mazda MX-5s. It's just always been a popular series here in the UK, and there are plenty of places you can race an MX-5 that aren't even one-make grids. Indeed, we've had MX-5s out this weekend in other series, so it's a great sort of entry-level car. A lot of people begin their racing careers in MX-5s, but then there are others who have been in and around MX-5 racing for decades, aren't there, and couldn't really imagine themselves doing anything else.
No, they seem to find a home in that sense when they come into this championship on that side. Well, I've got to point out, of course, recognising that these MX-5s came out in 1989. It's the year. Some of these cars could be coming up towards almost nearly 40 years old.
Yes, I know.
Which is extraordinary.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of the cut-off of when a car becomes classified a classic or historic in that sense, but 37 years must put it into somewhere that's of classic vicinity, which always seems bizarre given that I was born in 1990s against these cars when these cars came out for a year or so.
Does that make you a historic as well then?
Don't you start. You're not far behind me.
By your own definition, Scott. I think that's what you were stumbling towards.
Do I need to mileage up how old you are?
Moving on. Cars are about to get restarted here at Donington Park. And these cars that are still very much at the cutting edge of motor racing. 39 is the new 25, so I've been told. Yes, we're looking forward to 15 minutes of Mazda MX-5 racing. Adam Sparrow, Paul Simard, front row. Neil Chisnell and Michael Taylor together on row number 2. Who's going to get the whole shot this time? It was Sparrow the first time around, but whoever does get the lead into Redgate Corner, it's not one of those races you feel will be won at the first corner, will it? It's likely to be a race-long battle between that leading group. Ready to go then. 5-second board is held aloft, and he is hoping for a cleaner start this time after a bit of calamity first time around for the MX-5 drivers. Lights out, away they go, and it is indeed a good start once more for Sparrow from the pole position. Keep an eye on Steve Foden's white and gold number 77 car from the third row. He made good forward progress at the initial start of the race. Sparrow's going to hold on to the lead, and that looked like Neil Chisnell coming to the inside of Paul Simard for second. Round Redgate, there's another car through the gravel, but hopefully that is just going to be a single car incident, and they were able to continue at the back of the pack. Side by side, they're down the hill. Simard getting freight trained well and truly here, so Sparrow holds the lead. Chisnell through to second, and Simard could be as low down as 5th position by the time they come out of the old hairpin. He will be, because Steve Foden gets to the inside, contact further back. The 1-2-1 car is off of Daniel Lengel, and he tangled, I think, with Dev Singhal there, didn't he, in the AB Motorsport car. Again, I think they'll both continue, but somewhat delayed.
Yeah, so didn't quite get through all trouble-free for the first few corners, but they are starting to be a bit more disciplined in the top 6 at least. So Steve Foden up from 6th to 4th already, and that lead 6-pack is now been joined by Adam Craig, so he's making it the 6-pack at the front. Next group headed by Jason Greatrex, and he has Paul Bateman and Harry Storer, who have been sparring partners in the MX-5 Clubman Championship in the past. Good to see Paul not only back in MX-5s, but also actually not in Clubman, but he's actually in the, call it main, if you like, or kind of 2-day Mazda MX-5 Championship, and actually running in the top 10. There goes Foden passing Sparrow for third into the chicane as Chisnell takes the lead now. So Chisnell leads the way now with Taylor in second place. How much would he love to get a Mazda MX-5 victory? He came close at one point. Around goes Greatrex and also Harry Storer. That's both of the Pucker-sponsored cars, both of the Storers that have hit trouble. Another car that was in the inside was also going wayward. So there's 3 or 4 cars being scattered at the chicane. Meanwhile, at Redgate Corner, Taylor takes the lead from Chisnell. Storer does get going, so it looks like we won't have any further dramas in that sense on that incident, and they'll carry on unscathed as much. Chisnell has done the up and under and gone back past Taylor to retake the lead, and Foden's getting involved here. And as we know from history, if Foden gets a sniff of a victory and he's on good pace, never count him out at any stretch of the imagination, especially this early in the race.
Yeah, he looks a bit more competitive today than yesterday, where, as I say, he was just on the wrong side of pretty much every side-by-side situation he found himself in. Couldn't really get into his groove. Tell you what, they're very fortunate that that incident at the chicane didn't lead to anything more significant, with cars stationary and pointing the wrong way in the middle of the track. That could have been nasty, but good reactions from those behind to avoid the cars that were having their own moments. Now Foden for second position here up the inside of Michael Taylor at Coppice Corner, being given a shove by Adam Sparrow up the hill was Foden. The top 2 drivers in the championship are now side by side. In fact, they're 3 abreast, look, with Paul Simard giving the bumper to Sparrow on the inside line. Oh, off has gone the 87 of Ollie Walden. That's the old hairpin by the looks of it. It's Chisnell the leader. It is Sparrow back through to second position. He was gone from 1st to 4th to 2nd in the last lap. That's your average lap of racing, really, in Mazda MX-5s. And it's Foden this time who loses out. He will come across the line in 5th position, just ahead of... Right, what are you pointing out, Scott?
It's shown that Charlie does out of the race. He's not. He's in the race. I think his transponder
right.
hasn't been registered yet because he's not been put into the race. And Harry Storer was showing at the back, but Charlie's definitely in the race, but he's just not come through. So they have to try and manually insert him into the timings if they can. So I'd ignore that, and I'm sure that they'll be able to do so once they can. Back to what's actually going on at the moment. But I definitely saw his car going through the old hairpin, or earlier on at some point in the race. Through the old hairpin they goes the top 6 with Bateman in somewhat no man's land at this point. Then there's a bit further back. You've got 7th place for 8th place for Wright with Stephen Bartlett, Pillar Monk in the top 10. Another car goes gravel tracking. That is trying to work out who that is actually going through. That might be Josh Pato, I'm going to guess, I think, and he was just ahead of Jason Greytrex, who'd recovered after that incident. And Charlie has now been inserted into the race order. Quite conveniently, he's behind car 201, a certain Luke Souch. So this is basically round 4 of this kind of 5-round battle, if you like, the 3 MX-5 championship races and yesterday's Clubman races. It was 2-1 in Luke's favour. It could have been a top 10 for Charlie had he not got a 5-second penalty, because ironically, the car he was battling, Liam Martin Bradley, was the next one to get a 5-second penalty, and then Luke managed to get him above both of them to make that stick. Steve Foden going grass tracking as well. Don't do that. He's a sweep back to 6th position, right back to where he started. The fastest lap of the race gets taken 3 times, first by Chisnell, then Sparrow, then Taylor. And whilst all of this, it's now Paul Simard in the middle of all 3 of them, here in 3rd position. Doesn't get the fastest lap, but sticks in close in contention anyway.
Indeed he does. So yeah, Foden down to 6th. Simard here having a go at Sparrow for 2nd position, but Adam fairly firmly closes that door. Dev Singhal back out on track as well. He would have sustained some damage, I think, in the contact down here a couple of laps ago. To your point, by the way, about the Luke Souch Charlie Snell battle, there is actually a trophy, apparently. I was chatting to Marcus last night from the club. There's a trophy up for grabs for whichever of them scores the most points collectively over the weekend. I don't know exactly what point system they're using. I don't think it's the standard MX-5 one. I think it's just a private battle between the two. But there's a point spreadsheet and everything. You know me, I like a spreadsheet. Marcus was sharing that with me last night. And yeah, a trophy for whoever has the best weekend collectively. So I have asked for regular updates on that as we move through the day. I'll try and keep you all posted. I know you're all on the edge of your seats at home wanting to know who wins that battle. At the moment, I think it is Souch from Snell. There they are, look, through the right-hander at McLean's corner. And they've got the 78 car right behind them. But it is Luke Souch just narrowly ahead of Charlie Snell. But this might be one of the better battles they've had this weekend. They've been in and around the same area in most of the races that they've done so far. But as far as actual wheel-to-wheel competition is concerned, we haven't necessarily seen a lot of it. I think that's about to change.
There'll be bragging rights at stake also in the office tomorrow in Oxford, so see whoever's come on top, and whoever is on top of it, there'll be constant bragging and kind of rubbing it in their face, I think, in that sense, knowing those two. They are nose to tail, so they are in lockstep with each other out of the chicane. This is, for the record, it's over 15th position in the race, with Luke holding on ahead of Charlie at the moment. In terms of who's got the better lap time, only by a fraction it's Luke. They're both lapping in the same pace, 127.5. Now, Charlie has gone down the outside of somebody before, and he's thinking about doing it again, and unfortunately the camera's not watching them, because if we see the end result as it comes out of it, he's still side by side. Now, he did that going through the gravel yesterday, which the RSCC social media very aptly pointed out by completely not telling it, not posting who it was, but he kind of gave himself away by sharing it on his story and saying, yeah, the grey stuff is good, the green bit in the gravel is bad. But throwing through the old hairpin, he tried the outside line bravely enough, but couldn't quite make that stick. And if they keep on battling, both the likes of Harry Storer, who's recovering, who's pace-wise unquestionably quicker than both of them, just genuinely factually, and Richard Bartley might well start to disrupt this a little bit. So it's a bit of a sort of private battle at the moment, becoming rather more public, because there goes Storer breaking it up temporarily. Now, if Charlie can stick close with Harry, there could be an option here where if he opens the door up to get past Luke, he could take full advantage of that, as the leaders work their way out of the chicane now for the 5th time, still now with Chisnell in front, but with Sparrow right under his gearbox towards Redgate.
Yeah, pushing him down towards Redgate corner, but not, interestingly, looking to make a move in the braking zone. So I think Sparrow's trying to work with Neil Chisnell a little bit here to pull a gap on the rest behind. That will be easier said than done, but that is the right way to go about it. If you can start pulling a gap, then sometimes the cars behind start tripping over each other in eagerness to go after you, and that is how you can sometimes make a bit of a breakaway. So Chisnell and Sparrow forming a temporary truce at the front of the field. And it's now down to Michael Taylor, Paul Simard, Steve Foden and Adam Craig to try and go after them, although Craig just slipping back now slightly from the 3 cars ahead of him. Absolutely nose to tail then. The leaders head through Schwantz Curve. And Chisnell still feeling the need there to cover the inside line at McLean's. That's not really what Sparrow wants him to do. Simard wasn't defending, though. He was very wide and opened the door invitingly for Steve Foden, who moves back up into 4th position.
Yeah, so Steve Foden kind of yo-yoing up and down this kind of top 6 group. I think he's yet to actually take the lead at one point. He's got as high as 2nd or 3rd, but hasn't quite managed to hit the front because there's been so much battling and shuffling going on. Meanwhile, in the internal BRCC struggle for power between Luke and Charlie on the track, Peter Morgan gets a 5-second time penalty. These two are still nose to tail. Now, thankfully, Harry Storer, but getting past both of them and now escaping up the road, hasn't disrupted it too much. But Luke, who working his way now in the, just for colour, obviously, coordination just in case anyone needs it, it's the all-grey car of Luke Souch, who's a little wiggly through Coppice ahead of the blue, orange and white machine of Charlie. Of course, he's got his rookie cross on the back. He's done less than 6 races. I think his first ever race properly was, in fact, I think it was one of the C1 races before the 24 hours, if I'm correct. Of course, he did the 24-hour race with others. Neil Chisnell in the lead of the race. Well, it won't be any more because it's a 5-second time penalty for, guess what, track limit. So, ultimately, unless he can get away by 5 seconds, clearly, he ain't winning this race.
No, that's a shame, isn't it? Because it's going to slightly complicate now that lead battle that's going on. Here comes Snell versus Souch, and behind another similar side-by-side battle going on. Actually, this is Lengel, isn't it, and Pato battling away. But Luke Souch is not going to have an easy time of this. It is a completely private battle now. They've somehow found themselves a pretty empty bit of racetrack to scrap him. And Charlie Snell will be absolutely desperate to make this move. Carries good speed out of the old hairpin. Tucks into the slipstream of Luke Souch heading up the hill. And we'll try and make a move perhaps into McLean's corner. Now, look at the way that Chisnell and Sparrow have got away from the rest of the field. And of all the people for Sparrow to work with, he's picked the driver that has now picked up a 5-second penalty. So Adam doesn't even need to overtake Chisnell, potentially, to claim the race victory. They've really gapped the third-place group now, who are not working together quite so effectively. Michael Taylor at the front of that group, Steve Foden behind. But on the previous lap, they were nearly 2 seconds slower than the leader. So this teamwork between Chisnell and Sparrow is working, and actually for Sparrow he's in the ideal position now.
He is, because all he needs to do is sit on his rear bumper, and even though ironically at the very least it'll help preserve second place for Neil, because if he can get themselves as far as 5 seconds in front, that will certainly help. But of course it won't save Neil's opportunity to hold the race victory. Effectively what he's doing is he's kind of giving Sparrow a free pass for the victory and trying to save himself in second, because even if he tails Sparrow and keeps close to him and they pull away, he knows it won't actually change anything in terms of where he finishes, and even if he stays behind Sparrow, he won't be any higher up than second at that point, but he won't drop any further back. So they are trying to pull away a little more. The gap gets bigger and bigger, and he'll be aided by the fact that these four can't seem to leave each other alone for long enough to actually start to work together themselves. I'd give you the fact that 2 guys is better than 4, as off goes Simon Privet the second time in this race. And, with a gesticulation and frustration as he taps the A-pillar in angst. Onto the back straight they'll go. It's now side draft for Foden, battling with Simard as these two continue to pull away out in front. We'll see what the gap is. It was 3.7 seconds between Chisnell and Taylor in third place. Taylor's trying to lead them through as Foden makes the move and completes it on Simard. Across the line go the top 2. They did 123s themselves. What about Taylor and Co? They did 124.2, so they're going a bit quicker. They've kind of calmed down a little bit, but this tandem drafting between the 2 of them at the front is working, and it's steadily getting them further away. So just need to find another 8 more tenths at least, which is easier said than done. Although Taylor holds the fastest lap of the race so far with a 123.6. But Chisnell trying to pull away here to try and at least preserve a podium spot.
Yeah, the problem is there's no real chance now of Chisnell and Sparrow battling for the win, is there? Because they don't need to. Sparrow doesn't need to overtake Chisnell. That otherwise might have brought them closer to the chasing pack. That was all a bit messy through the final corner. Tim Storer there with the front end of his car hastily fixed during that red flag period. Now, there's a bit of company again for Luke Souch and Charlie Snell. They've been caught by the recovering Dev Singhal, who is a lap or 2 down as a result of the off earlier on. Neil Chisnell, meanwhile, race leader, has done it again. He's exceeded track limits once more, and that means it's now a 10-second penalty. So just as he was getting to within touching distance, maybe a 5-second lead over the third-place battle, he's going to have to double that now, and I don't see that happening in the remaining 2.5 minutes.
Definitely not. And Taylor's trying to pull away from the 3 cars behind, which is Foden, Simard and Craig. So he's not exactly helping them, he's helping himself at this point. Another time penalty stacked this time for Des Pilamonki. If they come up as 5 and then 10, it's not a 10-second penalty added onto the 5, it's the penalties being stacked on top of each other. So it's not 15 seconds total as Andy's rightfully said. The 5 seconds becomes 10 because he's had 2 5-second penalties. Just for those who might have needed the clarification on that, just in case. So Chisnell now has got 10 seconds worth of penalties to be added on when he gets the checker flag, which means Sparrow is pretty much at the moment unchallenged, even though visibly it doesn't look like that. Now there's been something's happened between. Well, these two have gone through each other. This is Lengyel and Singhal. And ironically, despite that, they've lost 2 positions, but they found each other again on track because Charlie backed off a little bit, but carried a lot more speed through the final chicane because I think Sauch was so close to trying to get past Lengyel. He's trying to get past to put another car between himself and Charlie, who is locking onto his rear bumper once again. So they're pretty evenly matched in terms of pace. You almost get a sense of, and it's no reflection on their own pace at all, but when rather than if Charlie's going to calculate making a move. They have to get a hurry on though because the leaders are about to start their last lap of the race, and I feel that maybe Adam possibly, unless he knows there's a penalties coming in for Adam, for Neil Chisnell, doesn't need to go for a move, although he maybe wants just the bragging rights of being across the line first by the time they get to the checkered flag. Yeah,
he's a smart driver though, is Adam Sparrow. If he's had the message, I'm fairly certain he will sit there to the flag, but you never know, he might not have seen that there's a penalty for the driver ahead of him, because I think if this was an equal battle and there wasn't a time penalty involved, this is when Sparrow would make the move. It's all been building to this final lap, hasn't it, to try and get past Neil Chisnell. No point doing it any earlier, because then you just open yourself up to be slipstreamed back past again. So I think we'll find out momentarily whether Adam Sparrow knows that the car ahead of him has 10 seconds to be added on. 10 seconds at the moment would drop him down to 6th position, Neil Chisnell. And of course, he's got to be careful not to exceed track limits again. Then it will become 15 seconds, and that will plummet him even further down the order. There's the 3rd place battle. Whoops, as we get some slightly jaunty angles through the old hairpin. That is perhaps more likely to change, isn't it, then? 3rd place, in fact, it will become the battle for 2nd place between Michael Taylor, Steve Foden and Paul Simard. There they go, through the right-hander at McLean's corner. Steve Foden's going to be a bit disappointed, I think, here if he doesn't end up getting at least to the front of that particular group of cars. It's not really been the Donington Park weekend that he would have been hoping for. Leaders then down the back straight. I don't think Sparrow's actually close enough anyway to get past Neil Chisnell, even if he wanted to, but I think that might be a deliberate choice by Adam, just to leave a bit of distance between himself and the leader. The last thing he wants is to, force Chisnell into a mistake that ends up delaying him. So Neil Chisnell's going to cross the line first. There has been a change further back. Adam Sparrow will win the race, his 2nd of the weekend, and it's going to be side by side for what will be 2nd place on corrected times. And by just under 0.2 of a second, Steve Foden does get the better of Michael Taylor, with Adam Craig next, and Neil Chisnell dropping, as I predicted, down to 6th position once that time penalty was applied. So where did Paul Simard... Oh, there we go. He's come through now in 4th. Dodgy transponder on the Paul Simard car. I thought we were missing someone when I was reading down that list of names. There's Harry Storer coming home. What's going on between Luke Sauch and Charlie Snell, I hear you all ask? Well, here they come, and that is Luke Sauch, and Charlie's dropped way back, so something's happened on the last lap. I hope Luke Sauch didn't get a bit rough with Charlie there in his defence of 15th place. He's pretty happy to have defended that position. 16th place, actually, for Luke Sauch, and Charlie Snell 17th, so a points advantage in their private battle to Luke Sauch after that their 4th race of the weekend.
So that makes it 3-1 to Luke now in terms of battles, in terms of who finished ahead of who, which is interesting. So Adam Sparrow, I think the way he was punching the air, looks like something came up obviously on the electronic boards here or something. He was notified somewhere that Chisnell had penalties, so therefore he realised that he was the winner and just played it smart, played it safe, stuck close with him and just made sure he kept the rest of the cars behind. That's at least a saving grace for Foden. Of course, you were saying on that last lap, he was hoping he gets to the front of the pack. He did, and it's good to see also that Mike Taylor has picked up another podium as well. And Simard doing well in 4th position as well, and Chisnell having to resort himself to 7th place rather than... Okay, so he was not far enough in... He dropped to 7th rather than 6th. So
it was 6th initially because Simard had disappeared off the timing screen. That's all it was. But
stand corrected.
Yeah, 7th position on corrected tyres for the man who led at the line. But it was Adam Sparrow who managed to come home a victor ahead of Steve Foden and Michael Taylor to join him on the podium. Paul Simard 4th, Adam Craig 5th, Steve Bartlett 6th, and Neil Chisnell, as I said, 7th ahead of Bateman, Greatrex and Chris Wright to complete the top 10 after a at times bruising but always entertaining 2nd race of the weekend for the AD Modular Mazda MX-5 Championship. They'll have one more race, a 3rd and final race to come a little bit later.